shout out to those of you that just jumped on. Shout out to Gail. I'm just gonna give a few minutes for a few others who to get onto the stream. We have a very, very, very informative stream tonight. It's gonna be a little different than some of the other streams that you've seen. If you have a pen and a pad, you might want to go grab that. We're going to school tonight because this subject title is very, very important. This is one of those make it or break it titles, if I have to be quite honest with you. This is one of those make it or break it titles. This is one of those titles that if we don't get it, and if we remain abstinent and not wanting to get it, just plain throwing it off like it's just another talking point, or it's just another subject that's been said before, whatever we choose to do with the title or the subject or the talking point, it's going to make all the difference. That's why I call it a make it or break it subject. Absolutely it is. So we're going to give a few more minutes just to give a few more people time to come on, who desire to come onto the stream. And for those of you that get onto the stream afterwards, make sure you get a pad and a pen when you do. Get something. I left some links in the description for you to go back and do your own research, so that you know that it's just not Charles Chambliss and his opinions and his idea about what I talk about when I talk about these talking points. So yeah, with that being said, we're going to give just a few more minutes, not long, just a few more minutes, just to give time for a few more people to jump on, and then we'll get started. We'll get right into it. But for those of you that did jump on, again, I want to thank you for taking the time out of your schedule. Whether you got on now while I'm doing it live, or whether you got on it, whether you looked at the replay. Even if you've looked at the replay, I still thank you for your time that you took out to watch it. Whether you watched it for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, or clicked on it and decided to click off, I still thank you for your time and whatever minutes, seconds that you spent, because these talking points are important. And I think this is something paramount that we need to really discuss as it relates to our black community and our family structure. You see the title. The title is Demonizing of the Black Family Structure. Feminism was a vicious trick. Not just a trick, but a vicious trick. Very much orchestrated. Very much by design in how it affected the black community. And this is what I want to make you understand tonight with these talking points, so that you, hopefully, when you look at the behaviors, you look at the propaganda, and when you look at how advertising is done, you kind of see the correlation between what I'm saying and how it's adversely affected us as a community, and more importantly, how it's affected you, ladies, and how it's affected the future going forward if we don't put some checks and balances on the behavior and on the propaganda that has so adversely affected our community. Okay? Subject: demonizing of the black family structure. Feminism was a vicious trick. A very vicious trick. More vicious than you even realize. More vicious than you even realize. I'm going to read some information, and I want you to listen very carefully, to lay the framework and the outline of what this whole talking point is going to be about. Then I'm going to say some things towards the end that's going to give you some clarity as to the danger and the damage that the idea and the propaganda and the ideology has caused our community and what that means for you, ladies, what that means for you if you continue in this process. And if you can't seem to break yourself away from the thought process that has affected us so negatively in our community, and as it relates to family, and as it relates to marriage, and as it relates to family structure, and as it relates to the whole idea of creating a meaningful, productive, wholesome community. Because as you've heard me say in previous streams, we can walk right outside of our front door and we can see the effects in our own community with our own young ladies that walk up and down the sidewalks, the ones that live in the complexes where you live, the ones that live in the neighborhoods where you own a home, the ones that work at the jobs where you work. Everywhere you go, your daughters, your nieces, your granddaughters, they're all falling into this melting pot of propaganda and ideology that sets them up going forward into their future, to where their future is not secure. Oh no, absolutely not. They've sold the bill of goods that says, if you go to school and you get a good education and you just do a little bit and you just concentrate on yourself, then you'll be fine. I'm going to show you tonight how that is a lie and a delusion. For many of you ladies, it's a delusion. You've fallen victim to the media. You've fallen victim to celebrities, be it R&B, be it actresses. You've fallen victim to social media as a whole, on every platform, OnlyFans and the likes thereof. You've fallen victim to the propaganda and the propaganda machine that powers this whole thought process. And you don't even realize what you're doing to yourself. You don't realize what you're doing to your granddaughters. You don't realize what you're doing to your daughters. You don't realize what you're doing to your nieces. You don't realize what you're doing to yourself by absorbing, ingesting, then digesting this thought process. You know that everything that we digest, it comes after we've eaten it, correct? And then there comes a last process after eating it, then digesting it. Your body gets rid of what's considered waste. I want to tell you, ladies, that what you've kept was really meant to be waste. And as a result, your body's become infected with waste that should have been passed, but you didn't pass it. I want to dissect this whole thought process of what feminism has done to not only you as an individual, but what it has done to our entire community. Get your pens and get your pads. We're going to dive into this. Again, thank you for jumping on the stream tonight. Another stream of Let's Talk About It. Let's start right here. I'm going to get right into this. I'm going to read something to you. I'm going to take my time tonight. So for those of you that can't stay, I thank you for coming. Watch the replay. For those of you that can stay, if it's important enough to you to stay, then I thank you for your time again. But we're going to jump right into this. Again, the subject, demonizing the black family structure. Feminism was a vicious trick. There were 3 waves of feminism. There were 3 waves of feminism. I'm going to talk about the first wave first. The first wave of feminism, it took place in the late 19th and 20th century. And the goal of this first wave was to open up opportunities for women with a focus on suffering. The wave began at the Senecal Falls Convention in 1848 with 300 men. Oh, I know that shocked you right there. Oh yeah, initially there were men involved in this movement today known as feminism or the women's movement. It started with men, okay? There were 300 men and women who rallied to the cause of equality for women. A woman by the name of Elizabeth Stanton, she drafted the Declaration, which outlined the movements, beliefs, ideology, and the political stance of that said movement. The same movement, it gave voice to activists that we all know in the black community, known as Sojourner Truth. She coined the statement. She coined this statement. Ain't I a woman? That was the statements that she coined. For those of you that are familiar with Sojourner Truth, okay? Then there was a second wave. Listen. The second wave, it began in the 1960s and it continued into the 90s. This second wave emerged at a time when the country was in uproar with the protests against the Vietnam War. The civil rights movement also during that time. And there was a growing consciousness of organizations that emerged and developed during that time, two of which I'm sure you're familiar with, the Black Panther Party and the Nation of Islam, amongst others, who saturated the black community with a black consciousness. Now I want you to pay attention to this whole movement we're talking about. Okay? This second wave of discussions that they had also included sexuality, talking about free sexuality. If you are familiar, for those of you that are a little older, that's a little older than me, or around about my age, or just a few years older than me, you remember the era of the Woodstock era. That's when you had these big, huge fields concerts. And it was just this huge, undisciplined, no check marks, no checks and balances at all with the behavior in terms of sexuality. That was during this time that this whole women's movement, in addition to what was called the movement to give women equality and suffering, and to answer the suffering that they were crying about. Mind you, when it first started, it had nothing to do with black women. Had nothing to do with us as a people whatsoever. It had everything to do with white women and their discontent with what their government, the government they lived in, which was this government, which we were not considered citizens of. They felt they were being treated unfairly because they were being excluded from opportunities as it related to jobs, income. So they formed a union together, an organization together to fight against government policies. Now I want to make something else really, really clear. They weren't fighting against government policies to the detriment or to the expense of their husbands. No, not at all. They still loved their husbands. They still wanted their family. They still wanted their children. They still believed in being feminine, fit, and friendly, and easy to get along with. They still were wives. They didn't do this because they wanted to sacrifice the life they had with their husbands. Follow me, ladies. Let's continue. As this discussion continued and grew in strength, the discussion of sexuality and reproductive rights. Reproductive rights is a soft term that was used after the 50s, after the 1800s up into the 1900s, during the beginning formations of the women's movement, at that time was called the suffrage movement. Okay? They called it, when they began to abolish what we now know as the softer term, I should say, the reproductive rights. It was initially called abortion rights. They decided that that term was too harsh, too direct, too straightforward. So they created a softer term, and it was called reproductive rights. Therein lies the birth of Roe versus Wade. Follow me, follow me. We're going to school tonight. Follow me. What happened? What happened as a result of this surge that was meant to give women rights in this government that were non-black? These were not your, these were your non-black counterparts. You were under the worst conditions at the time this movement began. You personally, as a people, as a black woman, you had no rights. These rights didn't apply to you at all. In fact, you weren't even considered when the movement began. There were no black people at these meetings. There certainly were no black women at these meetings. Just walk with me. As the movement progressed, when it finally hit, like I said earlier, in the 50s and 60s, it came at a time when our community was in an uproar because we wanted justice. We wanted freedom, we wanted justice, and we wanted peace and equality. We wanted freedom, justice, and equality. This is what we wanted, because we were being pounced upon by dogs, by water hoses, by brutality of law enforcement. We were being hung by trees. Okay, this is what we were going through at the same time that this so-called women's rights movement was in its insurgence. It was emerging. It emerged and became so radical at that time that it took over and damn near silenced the voice of the civil rights movement. Understand what I'm saying to you. This proposed women's movement, ladies, black women in particular, it wasn't for you. It never was. It never was. It never will be. And it's not today. Hate to bust your bubble. But I want you to think about something. Timing is everything. Timing is everything. If I'm going to do something, it's not what I'm trying to do or what I attempt to do or what I what I plan to do. That's not as important as the timing in which I do it. This movement came about in the 50s and 60s, where it began to penetrate, saturate the black community. This is at a time when black men were not making a whole lot of money. Weren't making a lot of money. But we were making enough that our wives were happy with what we were making. We were still able to come home to a peaceful home. We were still able to come home to a pleasant wife. We were still able to come home to our children greeting us with admiration at the front door. We were still able to come home to what was called home, and it really meant that at that time. I want you to follow me. Here comes this new wave idea, this new ideology, this new pathology, this new concept. All breaking off and coming from an idea of white women in this country who felt as though they were being deprived. Now, it moves up into the 50s and 60s. Black women take a hold of it, jump on board, take it hook, line, and sinker, and what happens? It starts to melt down and diminish the importance of the civil rights movement. Black men, if you look back in history, black men at that time, in their early 20s, they were very conscious. They were very active. They were very, very proactive and fearless when it came to causes. Look at the dumbing down that you see today. And I want you to go back to what I just said. A movement like this that made women focus on themselves and on themselves only. Black women in particular, not knowing what they were doing, not knowing what they were getting themselves involved in, just seeing other women who they had only had an image to look up to. What image did black women have to look up to back in the 50s and 60s that they felt any sense of pride about looking at? It wasn't us. It wasn't black women. It wasn't their own black sister. Think, sisters. Think, ladies. It wasn't their own people that they looked up as being proud of. They only had the white woman to look up to be proud of, because she had all the images in the media. We didn't have internet at that time, but we had magazines, we had newspapers, we had television. That's all they saw. So what they saw in terms of a female was the white woman, and they looked up to her and they wanted to be just like her. Follow me. We going to school tonight. Follow me. That's all they had to look up to. So imagine in the 50s and 60s when this movement emerged on the scene, right during the time when we were suffering, when we were protesting, when we were beating our fists and pounding our fists, walking up and down streets and highways, getting shot at and hosed down and dogs sicked on us. I want you to think, here comes a movement that's telling women, you don't have to submit yourself to this abusive patriarchy that we have here, headed and run by men. You don't have to submit yourself to this patriarchy. Not at all. In fact, you can demand for better rights and privileges, better jobs, and you don't have to be at home taking care of cleaning the home and looking after your husband and running behind kids, and you don't have to do all that. Just concentrate on yourself, and we can overcome this male-dominated patriarchy. Follow me. They weren't talking to you, ladies, black women. They weren't talking to you. But they knew they could sell that narrative to you, and you bought it. What happened as a result? What happened as a result, shortly thereafter, as this same narrative, as this same talking point, dubbed as women's rights. And you don't have to be pressed down and suppressed by men. They're holding you back, ladies. They're holding you back. You can't be independent and do for yourself. After all, you have a mind of your own. Why are you letting these men control you? Why are you letting these men stop you from progressing? Why are you doing this? You don't have to be at home being a wife. You don't have to be at home taking care of children. You don't have to be at home cleaning a house. He has two hands. This was the talking point. And it didn't take long before that bait was not only bitten. It didn't take long before that bait was not only swallowed. It didn't take long before that bait was not only digested. And it didn't take long before your body released the waste of what you had ingested. And if you look today in the society, you're looking at the waste of what was ingested. Because today, ladies, you believe that you don't need a man. And I'm going to explain something to you about this movement. This movement was not designed to empower you. They saw you, ladies, sisters, black women, they saw you as a marginalized group. You being a marginalized group, being dissatisfied, also with the conditions, socio-economic conditions, as well as political conditions, as well as the conditions of racism and the institutionalization of racism, as it affected us as a community, as a black community. Because again, like I said in previous streams, under the worst conditions, we were still married at 85%. In fact, we were married more than white people were in this country. Under the worst conditions, and we're talking about under Jim Crow, which is the 50s and 60s. Again, this is the same time frame that this program came into existence. There's something, I gotta get another piece of paper for you. Hold on one second, pardon me. Thank you for your patience. Again, like I said, we're taking our time tonight. We're going to school. That's what we're doing. We're going to school. Buckle up, buckle up. We're going to school tonight. Yes, we are. Again, like you heard me say, timing is everything. Timing is everything. It doesn't matter what I want to do. It doesn't even matter what I plan to do. If my timing is off, I'm not going to get the results that I'm looking for. The timing was perfect. It hit our community at the height of the black consciousness. Okay? And what did it do for us? Let me tell you what the results were. The results were collateral. And I'm telling you, it was collateral damage. That's exactly what it was, collateral damage. But it was a slow process of collateral damage. It didn't happen instantaneously. No, it did not. But it happened slowly over time. And over time, you began to see the digression in our community. You began to see the deterioration in our community. It began to go down more and more and more and more. And this is something to take note of. It was only designed and it was only supported by government. And I'm talking about on both sides, white and black. It was only supported, this alleged so-called women's empowerment, women's movement. I am strong, I am independent, I don't need no man concept, which it later perverted into later. But the whole idea was never supported by government until they knew that there was an economic benefit involved. There was a magazine many years ago. Some of you that are about my age, you probably remember it, and some of you that may be a little younger than me still might remember it. It was called the Cosmopolitan magazine. This magazine was the number one proponent, number one advocate of the idea of free sex. They even supported the idea of women not just having sex with a married man, but having sex with multiple married men. and that to have sex with one was dangerous, but to have sex with multiple was more beneficial, and that they could use that married man as like a pet. I want you to follow me. All of this came under the umbrella of the so-called women's movement, which now later morphed into what we know today as the feminist movement. Roe versus Wade came under the feminist movement. I'm going to show you how in a few more minutes. And why they have overturned Roe versus Wade, why they overturned it. I'm going to talk about that too in a minute. Ladies, you have no idea how badly, as it relates to the black community, you have been duped. You have been run amok. You have been led astray. You have been bamboozled big time. And they've used every machine available to them. Every machine that they had access and power to use and manipulate the minds of you. They used rappers. They used female rappers in particular. They've used female actresses in particular. They've used every avenue by which a female is represented. And today they still use it. Look at all the series that come out on the television today. These series. You tell me if these series show a man strong at all. All the series that you like to watch, all the ones you like to watch that come on television right now, on so-called BET, Black Entertainment Television. BET has not been Black Entertainment Television since it first started. It's been Black Entertainment stereotyping, Black Entertainment buffoonery. That's what BET has been. And again, buffoonery is at an all-time high. So we suck up buffoonery and stupidity and ignorance. We suck it up like pigs in a slop trough. It doesn't have to make sense. If it makes, matter of fact, the less sense it makes, the more interested we become, and that's sad because that shows the digression of where we've gone. But back to the subject. The feminist movement began initially to give rights to white women. Black women jumped on board in the 50s and 60s. And when we jumped on board, what it did was, because we had such a large army of strong, black, fearless men, it was incumbent upon the powers that be and the machinery in place to cause you to turn your backs on us. Because where is the strength in a black community if we don't have our women? We need each other. So how strategic could it have been to take a movement like this, strategically use media? At that time, it was no internet again, but there was magazines. Magazines was the strongest influence in the country at that time. Cosmopolitan being number one on the list. Number one on the list. Every advertiser in the country and outside of the country were fighting to get spots inside the Cosmopolitan magazine at that time. It was literally the Playboy magazine for women. And I'm gonna tell you something. Ironically, I just mentioned Playboy magazine, and that's for some of you guys that maybe they watch this stream later. you probably were all up in Playboy magazine. But let me tell you something. Playboy magazine was a tool also used It was used to promote the same idea, the same ideals, the same ideology, the same pathology, the same concept of feminism that has now destroyed our community, in particular the black community, so many other communities as well, but nowhere nearly as much as ours. It was used as the same tool to promote products and services, feminine products, tampons, women's products, clothing, shoes, skincare products, and the like. And we're talking about Cosmopolitan and Playboy both played a part. They were partners in the whole scheme of things to paint the narrative that you don't need no man. And you think it was an original idea. You think when you were told by your mother, girl, go to school, get an education, you don't need no man. You thought that was your mother's original idea, didn't you? I know you did. But truth be told, women as a whole, black women in particular, they bit the bait, swallowed the bait, ingested the bait, and then got rid of the waste, and now the waste is in the world right now. And that's what you're looking at. You're looking at the product of digestion of an idea, an ideal, concept, and propaganda. That's what you're looking at. There is no strong family without the man present. There is no strong community without the man present. And, ladies, there is no strong you without a man. I know some of y'all just did a backflip, but I'm going to say it again. There is no strong you without a man. Period. Let me give you an example of why that's important. You heard me say in previous streams that the average income of a black woman in this country is $27,800, right? That's at the lowest. At the highest, you're talking about $32,500. This is the average. For those of you that are saying, you know, popping your neck and stuff, I make more than that. Okay, I'm not talking to you. I'm talking about the average. When I talk about average, I'm talking about 85%. So if you make above that, then obviously you fall somewhere between 20%, 15%, 10%, depending on how much you earn annually. This doesn't quite relate to you specifically. But when we talk about the average, we're talking about the majority of our population. The average woman makes $27,800 to $32,500. Okay? Now I want you to listen to that. If you, perchance, just per se, now I'm going to talk to you who are above average just a little bit. Say you make $50,000 a year. If you make $50,000 a year and you save, say, $300, and you save $300,000, I should say, within a 20-year period from 25 to the time that you're, say from 25 for 20 years from the point you're 25, you save $300,000. Just follow me. Just follow me. I want you to get this. Say you save $300,000 for 20 years from the time you were 25, right? You may think in your mind that I'll be okay, I'll be fine when I hit 65 or 55. I'm going to show you how you're not. Because even if you saved $300,000 by the time you were 55, right? You're talking about, on the average, not even $20,000 a year. You're talking about somewhere in the neighborhood of about $16,000 a year when you start talking about $300,000 a year over a 20-year period. Average, it's about $16,000 a year that you saved. Over a 20-year period, between 65 and 85, you're talking about poverty wages. It's going to be very difficult for you to survive during geriatric years. During geriatric years, it's going to be very hard for you to survive. Just follow me. If you did that, okay, you would still suffer, ladies, a $750,000 shortfall. Why do I say that? Because you need about $1.10 million disposable income after you reach the age of 65 and you can no longer work. If that were the only income you had coming in, you would need $1.10 million just to survive from 65 to 85 and live comfortably. So you would suffer a $750,000 shortfall. What would you do? Like I said in previous streams, I'm going to continue saying it until somebody, to that special one that's listening to my streams, actually listen to it and say, you know what? Damn, what he's saying makes sense. I did the math, and you know, it's really not his opinion, it's actual fact. 2 plus 2 still is 4. You again would suffer a $750,000 shortfall. How would you survive? Having a man is not a privilege. It's not a luxury. It's a necessity. It's a necessity. Because if you make $35,000 a year, ladies, at the highest level, and he, the average black man, makes between $41,000 and $42,500, that's the average. Let's do the math. If you make $35,000 and he makes $42,000 a year, do the math. How much is that? That's $80-something thousand a year, right? Give and take a few. It's about $80,000 a year. Let's round it off. We're talking about $80,000 a year. Could you not live better than trying to live alone by yourself? Feminism was a vicious trick against the black man and the black woman and the family structure. It was such a vicious trick. Vicious trick, mean trick. Because the same people that supported the program and pushed it into the black community, they didn't have the dynamics, socioeconomic or otherwise, that we were facing. They didn't have to suffer under the same conditions that we were suffering under, because they were the ones putting us under the conditions that we were suffering from. They knew exactly what we were suffering from. They also knew that their woman would be okay. You see? Your non-black counterpart has never, ever abandoned her man. Even when she protested about something she disliked that her government was imposing upon her, she never turned against her man. She never did. That's why for those of you that have gone to college, even up to this day, in modern day time, you've watched your non-white black counterparts, your non-black counterparts, you've watched them get married. You've watched them. You've gone to their weddings. Nobody's gone to yours. In fact, you know you haven't gone to too many black women's marriages and weddings while you were in college, if any at all. But you know you've gone to Becky's wedding. You know you went to Marisol's wedding. You know you went to Jasmine's wedding. You know you did. But you didn't go to Shaniqua's wedding. You didn't go to Shanae's wedding. No. But you went to all your non-black counterparts' wedding. You watched them get married while you were still in college. And nothing ever triggered inside your head to say, what in the world is wrong with me, with us, that we can't get the same kind of outcomes? Well, that's exactly what this talking point is about tonight. The destruction of the black family structure. Feminism was a vicious trick, and you were the ones that got tricked. They targeted a marginalized group. They targeted a marginalized group. That marginalized group was you, black woman. It was you, ladies. You were the marginalized group that got targeted. That's why you spend the most money. You represent 80 to 95% of the market in terms of spending in this country. It was beneficial for them to target you, as well as your non-black counterpart. They didn't escape getting manipulated either. Oh no, white women got manipulated as well, absolutely. Every decision that's made in this country is based on income and money. This is a capitalist government, understand that. This is a capitalist government. It's about making money. If it don't make money, you heard the slogan, it don't make sense, right? You heard that before. If it don't make money, it don't make sense. Well, sometimes what doesn't make any sense still makes money. And that's what the feminist movement did. It made no sense. It painted a false narrative to give women this false sense of empowerment, this false sense of independence at the sacrifice of needing a man, when men are the ones that built the country. Men are the ones that built the infrastructure that both of us live on right now to this day. If you were to remove men out of the equation, how would you survive? I know what you're saying. We'd survive, we'd figure it out. We ain't the same, we ain't them old women from 1955, 1960, 1930. I know this is what you're saying. And you have no idea how foolish that statement sounds. Because if you had to do the dirty jobs, would you do it? If all the policemen were removed out of the country, if all the firemen were removed out of the country, if all the male doctors were removed out of the country, if all of the infrastructures in place that keep the country running were removed and you were left here by yourself, would you and could you do it? And more importantly, would you want to do it? Would you? Would you really want to do it? Would you really want to get into the sewers and clean out the sewage lines in a city and get feces all over your body? Would you really want to go into the ground and mine for oil so that you can produce the mineral resources that provides you the ability to have gasoline in your car, oil in your home? Would you really want to do that? Would you really want to get down in the mud and in the dirt and bang nails and cinder blocks, put cinder blocks down and tie bar on the roads to build roads and homes? Would you really want to do that? Would you really want to go unprotected at the borders when a foreign country were attempting to invade the country, but yet you have no men? Would you really want to be the one to stand on the front line, to defend the front line? Would you really want to do that? Would you, ladies, would you really want to do that? I think not. I think not. I think not. But the feminist movement has made you believe that you can do in this life what you want to do in the absence of men. To my sad regret, the demonizing of the black family structure. Feminism was a vicious trick. A very vicious trick. A very vicious trick. Ladies, we have to turn this thing around. We have to turn it around. We can't continue on this crash course where our community is concerned and where our family structure is concerned. The outcomes are clear. The outcomes are very, very clear that we will not be able to sustain the course that we're on. It's not sustainable. It really is not sustainable. We are better together than we are apart. We just are. The very women that are in positions of financial power, I should say, they really, I believe many of them mean well. I really do. If you come from a position in life where you don't have a lot, and then you find yourself successful, whether it be in R&B music, or whether it be in rap music, or whether it be in movies, many of our artists, they come from a life where they didn't have a lot, and then they found themselves very wealthy. And the further and further and further and further and further they got away from their humble beginnings, you can get lost in your success. Getting lost in your success prohibits you from having the conversation that's necessary to help those that are in the same condition that you once were before you became a celebrity, before you became an artist, before you became an actress or an actor. You're so far removed from where you came from that you get lost in your success and you don't even know how to have the conversation any longer. Because Hollywood has gotten a hold of your brain. The feminist, I am independent, I am woman, watch me roar, I don't need a man, that whole concept begins to saturate your brain to where you can't have the conversation any longer with those that are still in the same condition that you once were before you became successful. So what do you end up doing? You end up having a conversation that's according to the modern ideology, the modern pathology. And that modern pathology tells you to do things from the level that they used to be at that you can't even afford to say. They can afford to say these things because I just told you what you need at the point of 65 to 85. I just told you that. I just told you what the median income of a black female in this country at $27,800. I just told you at the high level of $32,500. I just told you at the low level for a black man is $41,000. I just told you at the high level of a black man is $42,500. And I just also told you that those two average incomes together make a great combination. Because you do need a man. You do. It's not a choice that you can decide not to or to. If you decide you don't want one, like I said in previous streams, ladies, you better get ready to decide to have what we call compound living. Compound living is when a bunch of ladies move in together. They get a 4-bedroom apartment or a 4-bedroom house. They all have their own individual rooms. They all share the living room, and they got 2 or 3 bathrooms in there, and they got their own nice garage where they can park their individual cars, and they all sit down and eat popcorn and watch Netflix and chill. That's your choice. You might be able to get through to 65, 85 with that, if that's what you choose to do. But if that's what you choose to do, do it. Outside of that, if that's not your alternative, that's what you choose to do, you better start thinking about the idea of number one, if you desire to be married, number one. And if in that desire you desire to have children, number two. If you desire any of those, you better start thinking about where you are right now in your psychology and your mentality. Because both psychology and mentality and behavior, I can add a few more verbs to that, could hinder that choice. We are better together than we are apart, for sure, for sure. Whether you believe it or not, whether you agree with what I said or not, it's of no consequence. All the consequences are on you, based on your decision. It's of no consequence to me. All the consequences will lie on you, based on your decision, and based on what you choose to listen to. Based on what you choose to listen to. And I thank all of you for getting on the line on the call tonight, on the stream tonight. I absolutely do. Shout out to all my 136 members, of which not even half watch the stream while I'm live. But I do thank you for watching it after I'm off. Appreciate you. Go back and ask yourself a question. Why did you join a stream that you don't intend to participate in? But I do appreciate you making the attempt. I don't need members. You know what I need? I need to see some change. That's what these talking points are all about. If I had 2 members of this channel, it'd be fine with me. If the 2 members listened to the talking points and it made a difference in their life. I don't care about numbers. I really don't. I don't care about popularity. I certainly don't care about fame. I care about a talking point. I care about these talking points that I'm having, and which many, many, many platforms are having. That we start to see some change in the community. And you know what? In our community in particular. Our community in particular. That's what I care about. I don't care about 200 members that don't want to get on the stream. I don't care about 200. I don't care about 400. I don't care about 1,000 members that become members but won't participate. I really don't. If I had 2, if I had 1, and they told me it made a difference in the decisions that they made as it relates to the outcomes that they say they want, I'd be happy. I'd be ecstatic. I really would. You have no idea. You have no idea from whence the talking points in the heart that this comes from. You have no idea. I would be so excited. For those of you that do jump on, though, I do absolutely appreciate you. And shout out to all my new members who just joined on to Let's Talk About It. Salute to you. Shout out to you. I appreciate you. I really do. And I hope to see you on the stream and streams that's coming up in the near future. We have a lot of good stuff coming. I have a lot of good content. I'm trying to improve my content for you because I want it to be valuable to you. So I do my best to bring you the best kind of content that I believe will be helpful for you. Yeah, some of the content may trigger you, some of you ladies, I know, because we're so ultra sensitive. We're so ultra sensitive that we get triggered at the slightest thing. You know, our ladies, our sisters get so triggered at the slightest thing before understanding the concept of what's being said, you know. And but I would hope that we can move past that and get more mature and be able to listen to a talking point and actually get what we need from that talking point. And again, so with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, enjoy your night. I trust that everyone had a great day today, and I'm sure many of you had to go to work today. Go ahead and get your much needed rest so we can get up and do it all over again. Again, my name is Charles Chambliss. I am the host of let's talk about it. And again, I appreciate you. And I'll see you Friday at 8 p.m. if you choose to get on. But again, I'll be on Friday live at 8 p.m. And with that being said, you have a great night.